Hello, powerful people, and welcome to the Power at Work blog. Or if you are watching this on TikTok, which we certainly hope you are, welcome to the Power at Work blog TikTok channel, or to the Labor Front TikTok channel. That's our friend Glenn Kage right here, or Mr. Looney's TikTok channel. That's our other guest right here, Don Looney. So this is going to be a really informal chat, but we thought it was one you should hear. I met both of these gentlemen on, believe it or not, I met them on TikTok. What a funny thing for three guys our age to be saying out loud that we met on TikTok and we became TikTok friends. But we were just absolutely spellbound by Glenn talking about the UAW strike, talking about political issues. Don jumps in and he joins into the conversation, and it's an unbelievably powerful, rich conversation. And both these guys are frontline UAW members, longtime activists in the UAW, political activists. And so these are exactly the folks we want to talk to about the UAW strike, because it's now, what day are we in on the strike now, gentlemen? This is Day five.
Sure.
So Glenn, first of all, I'm going to go to you first, just because you are our entry point into the conversation. And I'm sorry we're not, I feel bad, because usually what I enjoy most about your whatever they are on TikTok, what do they call them? Whatever you post on TikTok. What I love about them is when you're smacking down those negative commenters, those right-wing commenters who are telling us how horrible unions are. That's I don't have any. If you want, I can pretend to be one, but that's not who I am. So I want to ask both of you. Glenn, let me start with you. I'm just dying to know, what is, among the members that you're talking to and that you're working with, what's the mood around the strike right now? Are people excited? Are they enthusiastic? Are they committed? Are they sad? Are they frustrated? What do you think is the mood among the members right now?
I think it's pretty much a combination of all the emotions that you just listed, but they're fired up and they know. I mean, all you have to do is look at the corporate profits, look at the CEO pay, and look across the line at your brother or sister, how they're being treated on the line. And you start getting the feeling that there's more should be done. And 4 years ago, we walked out. We were out for 40 days and got a moderate increase in wages. It was not worth the 40-day strike that we endured. This time we're under new leadership, and International UAW President Shawn Fain has drawn a hard line in the sand and says, this is where we're at. This is what we need. And after they crunched all the numbers, it is their opinion that, and I agree with, that General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis can afford the pay requests, that the increase in wages that he's asking for.
Yeah. Don, you're working at one of the struck plants in Missouri, the only struck plant in Missouri right now. And so you're on the picket line, I think most every day. What are people saying on the picket line? What is the reaction? We get these, let me just say, we get these stand-up reports from television reporters, and they talk to three people and they say, oh, here's what strikers are thinking.
Yeah.
Don, what are strikers thinking? What are the people you're talking to thinking?
So a lot of my brothers and sisters, leading up to this, it was really tense, right? Because the things that we're talking about, we're wanting in this strike, have been on the table for maybe 2 to 3 3 previous contract negotiations, right? And we just couldn't seem to get it done. We got new leadership, and everybody's fired up about that for obvious reasons. And this new leadership really seems to be taking a hold and listening to what the members are asking for and taking those things to the bargaining table. I mean, we're talking about things like a cost of living allowance. We're talking about, taking care of our retirees and extending health care and pensions. These are things that we talk about every day on the floor that have gone away and we wish could come back, right? And now's the time, because the money is there to make all of these things happen. And the trends in the auto industry don't seem to be going down anytime soon. So we believe it's sustainable. And if this is what we have to do to get them to hear us so we can attain all of that, everybody's fired up right now, for their chance to be a part of this.
So how long do you think folks are going to be willing to stay out? I mean, this 40 days last time, that was GM, right, Glenn? There
Yes,
was a
sir, that is
GM strike. So how long are folks going to be willing to stay out? And I also want to ask you about the issues, but let's just talk about that, because I get asked, when I talk to reporters, how long is this going to last? Like I have some crystal ball, or like, both sides are calling me and saying, we're planning this for 17 days. No one knows, but what are people itching to get back, or are they saying, look, we're going to take it as long as we need to take it?
I think the consensus now is out on the picket lines earlier today, in Wentzville there. And the consensus that I'm hearing is that we'll take as long as it takes to get a fair and equitable contract. The membership is committed to getting repaid for not the bridge loans, but getting repaid for the concessions that we took in 2009. There's an article on a website called Portside, and they have a lot of good labor information on it. And in that article, it said that the concessions totaled up to $11 billion in 2009. That's what the UAW basically lent to General Motors, actually all three, because Ford benefited from it as well.
Absolutely.
So go ahead, Don.
Well, I was just going to say that the neat thing about where the region that we're located here in Missouri is that we have a lot of local businesses that thrive, because our plant is here. And so they're all, supportive, very supportive. There won't be a shortage of donuts and coffee for the next couple of weeks, right? They're taking care of the people out there on the picket lines and being very supportive. And so when you ask the question, how long can this act? As long as that community support is there, and as long as, we're able to thrive in that manner, I don't know if we can actually put a timetable on it. It would just be until they get to the table and make us a good offer.
Yeah. So I'm getting the sense from what President Fain said over the weekend. Maybe I can't remember if he said it over the weekend or today, that the strike is going to expand toward the end of this week. I don't see some miraculous settlement of the strike this week. I mean, the parties. You tell me. Does it feel to you like the parties are so far apart that this is going to take a little while? Because that's what I've been saying. It'd be nice if I were right. Tell me if I'm wrong.
But I don't think it's going to take as long as it did last time. I really don't. And
really,
well, the reason I'm saying that is because the initial offers that they came out with this time were more generous than what they did 4 years ago. Plus, they're in a different situation this time than they were 4 years ago. 4 years ago, they had a large supply of vehicles in the field waiting to go to the dealerships. This year, thanks to the pandemic and part shortages, some of them caused by the pandemic, dealers' inventories are already tight. And this strike is going to create a situation where it becomes even tighter. And it's going to, I believe, force the big three to sit down and negotiate in earnest.
Yeah. So I hear that, but so I'm looking at it from the perspective of how much distance do the parties have to travel in order to get to a deal. And Don and I were talking about this, Glenn, when you were late to the show. I mean, we can go ahead and tell everybody.
Right.
Don
Thanks
and
for
I,
not making me sing for being the last one in the room.
That's okay. We're not going to, maybe the UAW hymn maybe later on. But so Don and I were talking about this. It's not just the wage demands, right? There's a long list of things that made up those concessions from the past they're not from the past. They're still the reality for folks in the plant right now. There's a lot of things that the companies are going to have to move on in order to get a deal. So the press is really focused on the wage demands, but it's also the two-tiered system. It's hours of work. It's the pensions and retiree health care. It's making temporary workers permanent. It's there's a list of stuff. And in some cases, the parties have moved together, so I think there's been some meaningful movement, maybe not enough, but meaningful movement on how long it takes for someone to get out of that sort of probationary tier. Used to be 8 years. Now the companies are saying 4 years. The union has asked for 90 days. But man, there's a lot of stuff to solve here. It's a big, complicated problem with a huge amount of money involved. So I'm Glenn, I love that you're optimistic, but I'm sort of from an outsider's perspective. My sense is it might go longer. Don, tell me again. I'm happy to have you tell me I'm wrong, but what's your sense of it?
Well, it's, I would love to see what the odds are on the line in Vegas, right? Because this is really unpredictable.
That's how. Wait a minute. That's how we're doing collective bargaining in America now. We've outsourced it to the sports book at Caesars. Is that
here's
what we've
the
done?
thing. There are so many disparities between the members, right? When it comes to pay, employee classifications, and things of that nature. And essentially, we just want to wipe all of that out, right? Fair work, equal work, fair pay for all of that, right? We would just want to balance the scales internally. And with the concessions, it allowed them to create all of these different brackets and tiers. They're way more than they'll tell you it's only two, but really when you get into the temporary classifications, the step ladder with the wages, I mean, it's an infinite number of separations as far as what people are making, and we're all doing the same work. So we want that eliminated. I think that'll probably be the toughest thing for the company to come off of, right? At this point in time. And that's just my, layman's frontline worker perspective on that. But as far as how far we are away from that right now, I think they're inching closer, but that you let them tell it. If they go all the way to what we want, right, they won't make it. Even though, they're still giving out the stock dividends and the bonuses and things of that nature, they won't be able to make it. And so I think that may be the place where they dig their heels in the sand. And it really comes down to what we as a membership is going to be willing to give up. Because even when they reach a tentative agreement, that has to come back to the membership and we have to vote on that, right? And so if we don't like it, we could be back at this again. So that's why I say it's really kind of hard to say how long it'll go. But at this point in time, I believe our membership, and then with the staggering and the strategic approach and not just sending everybody out at once, I think that's going to allow us a little staying power, a little length in this fight.
Yeah. Glenn, what do you think?
No, I think Don is pretty accurate on everything. And one of the reasons that I'm cautiously optimistic is because of the way President Fain is handling this. And Don will offer some insight when I'm done here. At least I think he will. One of the things that he's doing, and one of the things that this is creating is, that the negotiators for Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors have got to be making some backroom phone calls saying, dude, what are we going to do to get this resolved? It's starting to really hurt us. It's impacting all three, whereas in previous contracts, we knew General Motors was going to be the target about a week and a half before we actually struck. Mm-hmm. So we were in a position to be a little bit more prepared. General Motors knew it. Ford and Chrysler, Stellantis sat back and waited for the pattern bargaining for us to get our contract. Then they enjoyed the pattern bargaining. Most of the heavy lifting was done. And by doing it this way, it is forcing them to have communications with each other about what they're going to be able to do. And I may be wrong, but this is, I think, a pretty solid assumption that it is creating a situation where they have to be doing some backroom conversations to try to find a resolution to the impasse.
Yeah, I get that sense too. The way that their offers are sort of moving roughly together, first one went to 20% on the wages, then another went to 20 or 21%, and then Stellantis brought theirs up to 20 or 21%. That doesn't just happen. Folks are talking, they're watching, they're trying to make decisions that make sense for their companies, but also for the industry as a whole. So I'm going to ask you a hard question, and it's you can tell me you don't want to answer it if you want. Don, I'm just curious what you think. So there's a lot of issues on the table, and the question is, what does the membership have to get the ratification vote you were talking about? Because there's an interesting situation politically inside the union. President Fain won the election, the first ever direct election in the UAW. He won the election, but he won it by a few hundred votes out of a lot of votes that were cast. And so I get the sense that not only does he want to negotiate a good deal, but he also wants to bring the union together around the deal that he's able to negotiate. And that means getting a ratification vote, maybe not 83% like the Teamsters got with UPS. That's a huge ratification vote. You don't often see that. But you got to believe that he's thinking, I've got to get to 60%, 65%, maybe higher than that, to show that the membership really supports this deal. So and I'm not asking you to do the negotiating, and you're obviously not speaking for the union. You're not at the table. All of that, all those qualifiers. But what do folks have to have? Maybe not to say, oh, I love it, but to say I can vote for it.
So here's the thing, right? I'm going to say all of it. And the reason why I say all of it is because each aspect of those things affects a different member in a different way, right? If we come to the table and, we don't have a legitimate plan to secure job security for temporary employees, right? That's going to hurt the deal, right? If there isn't something in there that benefits our retirees in some way, for a lot of people, that's going to hurt the deal, because a lot of our members are third and fourth generation UAW members, right? So those retirees that we're talking about, these are parents and grandparents, right? For a non-traditional employee like myself, right? Pensions are, that's going to be a thing, right? What are you going to do when I'm too young to die and too old to work, right? So I don't know if there's something that I don't know if the membership will rally around some of those things being left off the table. That's probably the best answer I can give you.
Wow. Well, that sort of reinforces my point that, wow, there's a lot of issues that need to be resolved. By the way, the answer to your question, Glenn, is this is being streamed live on the blog. It's also being streamed live on YouTube, and we're going to put it up on our TikTok channel, and we're hoping you're going to do the same thing, and Donna's going to do the same thing. And then some of those trolls and right wingers can come after you guys, and we won't be touched. We won't, because they don't know to come after us yet. So what, Glenn, what's your take on that? Because Don is I can tell, an ambitious guy. So he's basically saying all of it. Is that what has to happen in order to get to that big ratification vote?
I'm not going to disagree with Don. I think that everybody would love to see all of it, but I'll tell you the same thing that I've said to some of the international reps that I've talked to is it makes me, I have concerns that the international has set themselves up for some failure by making all these commitments and promises that are maybe unobtainable. Not saying they're not obtainable, but 40% wage increase, 32-hour work week, COLA, pensions. I hired in 2014. I will not have a pension when I retire. I think Don's in the same situation, nor will we have health care. And we'd love to have that. And those are things that were on the list of things to be bargained for. But my concern and my fear is that they're not going to be obtainable. I mean, we're taking a huge bite of this apple as it is. I don't know that we're going to be able to get the whole apple.
Yeah, it's really ambitious, and you got to admire the ambition, trying to undo all of the concessions, or seemingly all of the concessions, all in one fell swoop. And it sets up a big battle. It's getting the whole way there. Wow, that's going to be a long, hard fight. So, Don, I want to come back to something you and I were talking about again, because Glenn was late, and we had a lot of spare time to get to know each other, and I'm really glad we did. Glenn, you didn't have to show up late again, because Don and I we're bonding.
That was an opportunity for you guys to iron out all the problems before I got here.
Yeah, or to talk about you behind your back. Let's be honest. I mean, that's plenty of opportunity. So, Glenn, you started talking a little bit about buzzers and bells and whistles and barking and other stuff that goes on inside the plant. Take us inside. So most of the people who are watching this have never been in an auto plant. They've never been in an auto plant. So take us, and you work the night shift Right.
Yeah.
So when do you start? What time do you start?
I start at 10:30.
10:30 and you go to
6:30. And that varies, that's our situation here because we run 3 shifts. We have plants where they only run 2 shifts, and those shifts could turn into 12-hour shifts.
oh,
The start times vary. It's a whole lot that goes into it.
right. So just so people understand, you're saying 10:30 p.m. to
Yes.
6:30 a.m.
AM. Yes.
You're working. For all of those people out there who think that auto workers have cushy jobs and asking for a lot of money is crazy. Okay, so walk us into the plant, tell us what it looks like, what it sounds like, and what you're doing and what your coworkers are doing sort of day to day. Give us sort of the nitty gritty of what that what that work is like.
So walking in to start your shift, okay, you're walking in. Our plant runs 24/7. So you hear the chains rattling from the conveyors moving. You hear tools, air tools, electric tools, power tools going, zipping, zip, 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 zip. There's a lot of right now it's ambient noise, right? It's what I normally hear. So it's normally me when I walk in there, but it's really loud. Okay. You hear bells and buzzers going off, right? Line time, to start the line, to stop the line. If someone has an issue, there's a bell we call the andine. You pull that bell and it rings a little bit until somebody can come over and help you fix the problem that you have. You'll hear us, trying to have conversations. We work, 40 plus hours a week. So the guy across the line and to your left and to your right, these people become like family to you. So there are conversations going on about, the latest movie, what the score is on the football game. When you're walking in and everybody's still there, they're wanting to know what's going on outside. So you got a bunch of people asking you, how's the weather? Is it hot? What's the parking lot look like? When work starts, I average, well, when I was in chassis, I moved to a different department now. But when I was in chassis, I averaged about 2,200 steps a day. Walking back and forth up the line. And because our vehicles are on a conveyor, we have to move in sync with that line while we're doing the job. So nobody's standing around, nobody's sitting around. We're standing there, putting parts onto a frame or putting parts onto the body while these vehicles are moving.
So are you walking alongside a chassis when you're working in chassis?
Yes.
Walking alongside it as it's moving down the conveyor belt
Yes.
and doing whatever it is that you're doing?
Yes. Could be a chassis, could be a motor, but yes, you're walking alongside the vehicle, back and forth. You do one vehicle and then you move on to the next, and second verse, same as the first. You're doing the same thing again. We put out about 350 to 375 vehicles a day. So that's how many times you're going through those motions.
So you're doing the same physical motion on that part of the car 350 to 375 times a day, and you're usually using a tool of some kind, right?
Yes. There are tools involved. Depending on how heavy the parts are, you might have to have a hoist, right? Because if it gets up over 30 pounds, you lift that 300 times a day, you're risking injury, right? And you're risking injury anyway, even with the hoist. But some of these parts are heavy. Sometimes you got little bitty screws, right? So we got people who deal with, hand cramps, carpal tunnel, and all of that because some of the parts are smaller. You deal with back issues if the parts are bigger because you got to bend over, and not just walking beside the vehicle, but in our plant, you have to walk back and forth to the racks where they store the materials that you're putting on. So you have to get the parts out of a bin, then bring those over to the vehicle, all while the vehicle's still going. Like I said, so you do that for about, 3 hours, I think 2.5 hours at a time before we get a break. That's really what it is, and the camaraderie amongst us is really what makes those days go by. You really get to know people. Those conversations I was talking about we're having, that really kind of makes it all sweet. And the fact that we're compensated fairly, right? Sub fairly, I should say, but it's a good job if you want a job, but we want to get back to where we turn this into a career like it was, years ago.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
No, that was absolutely perfect. Sort of painting a word picture of what that experience is like. And that's how many days a week you're doing? 8 hours a day,
8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And then I'm going to add a caveat to that, because if you're at the top pay scale within our current compensation plan, there's no raises in the future for you. And then those people who, we're asking for those people to get paid back for what they missed out on concessions. Those people have very minimal raises, maybe $1 this year, $1.50 one year, and then the off year they get like a lump sum payment. It doesn't really balance out. So you'll have people who are working overtime or picking up extra shifts here or there, just trying to make ends meet, because that's really the only way that we see an increase in our wages.
Yeah. It's really something. Glenn, anything you want to throw in on that?
No, I think Don pretty well summed it up. And it is loud and it is dangerous. It's very dangerous in the plant. When you think about it, our plant is right at 100 acres under one roof. And I don't know how many miles of conveyor are in it. Excuse me. But when you imagine sheet metal, coils of sheet metal coming into our stamping facility, being pressed by 40,000 pound presses, where they stamp out the fenders, the hoods, the doors, metal parts. And then from there, it goes into the body shop where it's assembled. And robots do a lot of the work, but our people load the cells, which means that they put the parts in place. Robots pick it up and it's either sealed or welded or whatever, and comes out the other end, a door or whatever they're working on. And the logistics of that sheet metal rolling in, engines and transmissions coming in, and they have to go and we have an engine line and an engine set where people assemble all the accessories that go on the engines. Then it's married to a transmission. So they have to make sure that the right transmission is there when the engine gets there so that they can be married. Then it goes up and over a conveyor to engine set, where it is actually put in the vehicle, and the people on the rest of engine set are tying all the components to the engine and transmission.
Yeah.
And then while all that's going on, there's a body going through paint department that's being painted.
Yeah.
They take doors off when it comes out of paint, and the doors have to be built from the inside out. So we have a door line. It's just crazy to think about. All that comes together at body marriage, where they take a engine, the frame, and all the chassis, and it's married to the body, and it has to be done right. And if one of them is running late, it shuts everybody down. It's really crazy to think about, but that's what all goes into it.
God, I'm totally exhausted just listening to you guys. That's unbelievable work. Okay, I want to let you get back to your lives, although I want to give you a warning that it's not out of the question that we're going to ask you to come back here. Depending on how long this strike lasts, we might have to have you back and do this show again, is get an update and see what your mood is and what the mood on the line is. But I want to close with this, because we've been very serious and we've taken this very seriously. So here's your opportunity. And I'll start with you, Don, then Glenn, you can close us out. Don, what is the stupidest thing a critic has said about the UAW, auto workers, or the strike, where you've wanted an opportunity to respond? Because I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond right here on the Power at Work blog. What's the stupidest thing you have heard? Because I have heard some ridiculously stupid stuff, but I'm curious what you're hearing.
Wow. Oh man. I wish you'd have gave me that one ahead of time, because I got like 10 that are flooding my brain right now and it's trying to pick one. I guess wow. I guess it's here's what I'll say. I'll say that people who say that we're overpaid for what we do, right? And people who say things like this labor is unskilled labor, it's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because I challenge anyone, right? Anyone, anywhere, right? I don't care if you've been in manufacturing before, you haven't been an auto worker, right? But I challenge them to come in off the street, walk up to one of these jobs and do it without 3 to 4 days of training. There's definitely a skill set that goes into what we do. And it's not easy work, right? We make it look easy because we're pros at it. We've done it for so long, but it's not easy. So hearing that this labor is unskilled labor, right? Because we don't go through an apprenticeship program or any of that stuff. That's probably the dumbest thing I've heard. And that would be the one that I would want to respond to.
I think that is dumb. And people who look at all of this kind of work all kinds of manufacturing work and industrial work as being unskilled. Just listening to your description of it tells me that if I were in that plant, I would have an engine crushing my head within the first hour I was in the facility. I wouldn't know how to duck. I wouldn't know where to go. I mean, anyway. Okay, Glenn. So you because of you're so active on TikTok, I'm not even sure you're going to be able to choose from the tidal wave of stupidity that I have seen you respond to. So I want to give you a chance. What is the stupidest thing that you have heard about the UAW auto workers or the strike, and give you a chance to respond to it? Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, it's not as difficult as you would think. And I'm going to go into the Wayback Machine. 2006, Hazelwood Assembly was closed. They built Ford Explorers. Hazelwood is a suburb of St. Louis. This predates social media as we know it today. And somebody wrote an article that was in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and they said that those jobs were so easy, a monkey could do it. That is what they said. And people, if you didn't read it, you may doubt that anybody could say something as ignorant as that. I have, in the last week, I've had two different people say the same thing. Those jobs are so easy, you could train a monkey to do it. Not only is that ignorant, but it's racist. And it's bullshit. I mean, it really is. These are some very difficult jobs. Some of these jobs, and Don talked about it a little bit, especially on the IP line. That's the instrument panel, your dashboard. People have to reach inside behind those dashboards, contort their hands and fingers to snap things into place, screw things into place. They're not easy. And I see people almost every day that have had carpal tunnel, shoulder surgeries. Don talked about the hoist. Those operators do that job 350 times a day. They know the minute that hoist needs oil or that there's something not quite right with it. And they call maintenance. I'm in maintenance. I'm an electrician. And they send somebody out to look and see. And if it doesn't get tended to, people get injured. They injured their shoulders or their arms or something, because instead of it gliding and doing it the way it used to do, now all of a sudden there's resistance to it, and they're having to work extra hard to try to make it happen. So these people that sit out there in the sidelines and complain about these jobs or how easy they are, it sounds easy. It looks like it might be easy. And the way some of these guys like Don, I've gone out and talked to Don when he was on engine line, and he does his job. I don't know how they keep up with all this stuff, but they do it, and they learn it, and they do it. And I've gone out and talked to Don, and I've watched him and scratched my head, thought, man, I'm glad I'm an electrician. I couldn't do all that. The people are wrong.
Yeah,
they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I call them out almost every chance I get. One thing I'm going to say, I guess it comes with TikTok, but when I woke up this morning, I had like 280 notifications with messages from people from a TikTok I did yesterday evening. I don't know how they keep up. I don't know how big creators keep up with all the comments and the negativity. But I knew when I was getting involved in it, it's social media. People can sit back and cast whatever stones they want to cast. It's up to us how we respond.
Well, you're both doing a huge service helping to explain the strike and answering folks' questions on TikTok and just being present. I think, having labor people present on social media, I think is incredibly powerful. And let me just say, I'm going to use this as an opportunity for a little advertisement, right? Go subscribe to the Power at Work blog, poweratwork.us. Follow us on TikTok, Power at Work. Follow us on, are we calling it X now? Are we going to agree that, so follow us on whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say this, and I'm not lying. When I went and looked at your blog, because I didn't know I hadn't heard much about you guys, and we messaged back and forth a little bit, and I thought, well, who are these guys? And I saw the caliber of labor leaders that you all have interviewed.
Yes.
I saw that, and I'm thinking, what the hell do they want to talk to me for?
This is why.
I just said the same thing.
Yeah, Don said the same thing, but you know why? Because we want to talk to leaders, we want to talk to frontline workers, because that's the way you get a comprehensive perspective on workers and worker power and unions. So we've talked to the president of the AFL-CIO. We've talked to frontline museum workers, frontline public sector workers, frontline auto workers now. And you can't understand what's going on with labor unless you talk to everybody. But can I just say, you interrupted my commercial, and now I'm not going to start again. Follow us at Power at Work Blog on Twitter, X. Follow us at Power at Work Blog on Threads, at Power at Work on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's not at Power at Work, it's the Power at Work page on both LinkedIn and Facebook. Follow us there. If you're seeing this on TikTok, follow us here. Really excited. And can I just say, these are the folks you're talking about when you're talking about this strike. So think about what they're telling you about what this means to them, what it means to their families, what it means to their communities, what it means to their coworkers. This is a big deal. This is their lives they're talking about. This is not just some chit chat. This really is important stuff for them. And I think for the country, that's why I spend time talking about it. Don Looney, Glenn Kage on the Power at Work blog. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Really